When the killer accidentally admits it. A simple spelling mistake can cost you your final or your life, such as what happened with Robert Durst. Millionaire Robert Durst's life of crime is so unbelievable, it was literally made into a movie. It all started when Durst's wife, Kathleen McCormick, went missing in 1982 during a divorce between the two regarding cheating and domestic abuse. Kathleen's disappearance went cold for 18 whole years until in 2000, one of Durst's longtime friends, Susan Berman, was found executed. A letter was sent to the police with a misspelling word of Beverly into Beverley. There was one strange element around Berman's death, though. Robert Durst, who was in the area around her murder and had sent her $50,000 prior when he learned that she would be questioned by the police around Kathleen McCormick's disappearance. It's easy to guess who would be responsible for both now. Durst had a run-in with the police around a different murder, which he labeled as self-defense, but the case got so popular that it was made into a Ryan Gosling movie, and then an HBO documentary titled The Jinx. The documentary didn't just get raving reviews and critical acclaim, it also coincidentally signed Durst's penance when the letter was found with the same Beverly spelling mistake. The letter was good enough evidence to restart the investigation with the police, but this was only the beginning, as Robert had his mic on for the documentary and accidentally entered the bathroom while he was wearing it. Now, you might sing on the toilet or play Candy Crush, but Durst likes to admit to murders he's committed decades ago while he's doing his business.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all. Of course.
In 2021, the letter and tape led to Durst being indicted for first-degree murder for Susan Berman, as well as the murder of Kathleen McCormick later. The police were in good luck too, as it turned out that Durst was planning on fleeing to Cuba. So, what a production date that was for a documentary.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Robert Durst, guilty of the crime of first-degree murder of Susan Berman.
And sentence of this court, Mr. Durst, that you be imprisoned in the state prison for the term prescribed by law, that is, life in prison, without the possibility of parole.
At almost 80 years old, Durst still got the last laugh, as although he was sentenced to life, passed away of old age before the trial could even begin, having lived an entire life with 2 or 3 murders and not punished a single day for it. Sometimes it's realistic to question how certain things are fair in life. Speaking of not serving the deserved sentencing, next is multi-millionaire David Youngerman, who you'd think is some kingpin for the crime he'd committed. In October 2017, Youngerman lost a lawsuit, which he had to pay over $5 million. His rival in this case was attorney Tom Pickett, who got mysteriously shot and killed with a .17 caliber gun after the trial. If you've seen any movie ever, Younger obviously did it, though he wasn't deemed a suspect until they searched his white van, which had been circling Pickett's neighborhood. Inside the van, they found the exact .17 caliber ammo and in his home, audio recording of him talking about killing Pickett.
Where the baby was that morning?
There seems to be a running theme of millionaires being dumb enough to record themselves confessing to crimes. For the jury, the case was easy as pie, but as 84-year-old Youngerman pulled into court on a wheelchair, this wasn't going to be easy to just send him off to prison.
To count 1, we the jury find the defendant, David Youngerman, guilty of murder in the first degree.
Youngerman was definitely found guilty, but the judge decided that this senior citizen in a wheelchair probably wasn't competent enough to be sentenced to prison, and although he deserved his sentencing, he had to be committed to a state mental health facility for 6 months for treatment, which seems like very light punishment for his crime. But the possibility of him passing away in that institution, away from everyone and everything he loves, is extremely high. The trend of recorded crimes continues still. Philip Snyder, who fell for the oldest trick in the police book. In January 2018, in Hartville, Ohio, police showed up at Snyder's door for questioning. He started telling them about how his wife, Roberta, had died while on a trip to Memphis despite getting medical treatment. Snyder described the events in detail.
She choked on a phlegm. She'd been choking for about a year.
These details seemed to change the more he went on. The one thing he was constant about, though, is that he sent his wife's body to be cremated in Tennessee.
So where's your wife now? What happened to her?
They took her to a place where they cremate people.
Police started investigating, but they found no evidence of a Roberta Snyder cremation in Tennessee, and all of a sudden, Philip wasn't a sweet old widower anymore. They needed more evidence, so they used the oldest trick in the book, an undercover cop.
You enjoying this weather?
Officer Joan Bauer went undercover, pretending to be someone interested in befriending Snyder, and started spending time with him in coffee shops. Over time, with more rapport, Officer Bauer got a confession out of him. He confessed to killing her with a mallet and wrapping her head with a plastic bag.
Can you imagine a hammer this big and this big around?
Like a mallet?
Yeah, 2 pounds.
Okay.
Just scenario.
Right.
Say I bonked her in the head
Right.
and her tongue came out. Just scenario.
Right.
And I put a bag over her head.
In court, the judge was appalled by Snyder, who was charged with aggravated murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He pleaded guilty and got sentenced to 20 years in prison, though the body of Roberta was never found. Murder is always heinous, but it's a special kind of evil when it's your own children. But that was the evil of Lori Vallow, aka the Doomsday Mum. This story reaches blood-boiling levels, and it all started in 2019, when Lori was withdrawing her son, JJ Vallow, from school to be homeschooled. He was last seen with his sister, Tylee Ryan, before Lori married her 5th husband, Chad Daybell, in Hawaii. However, things got exceedingly strange when JJ's grandmother requested a welfare check on Lori's townhouse, and Lori told police that JJ was over in Arizona with a family friend, Melanie Gibb. But Gibb told police that he wasn't, and that Lori told her to lie to the police about being with him. Around that time, Lori and her husband were seen packing their truck at the townhouse to a storage unit. That was then searched and revealed Tylee and JJ's belongings. Both kids had been missing for a very long time. Lori was arrested for desertion and non-support with a bond of $5 million that was lowered to $1 million. But her arrest led to far more horrifying revelations. In Chad Daybell's house, a pet cemetery was found with the remains of JJ and Tylee.
You were dancing on a beach with a smile on your face, taking wedding photos, trying to go on with life. You don't see me trying to find some kind of happiness. You think I wanted to be alone? Do you think that your mother and your sister and your son don't deserve to know that the children are gone?
This was backed with a disturbing phone call between Lori in prison and her sister, who seemed to know something was going on. Both Lori and Chad's charges were dropped in favor of much bigger charges: conspiracy to commit murder. In court, Lori Vallow was instructed not to speak, and yet her remorselessness was evident in the way she carried herself, smiling and joking with the lawyer next to her. Lori Vallow is still awaiting sentencing, which is ample time for her to think what on God's earth would ever drive a woman to murder her own children, let alone then dance in her wedding in Hawaii. But what happens when a lawyer stands on the opposite side of the court? You get Alex Murdaugh.
I'm innocent.
Murdaugh was a prominent lawyer who had some marriage problems with his wife, Maggie, leading to a possible divorce. This culminated in a trip they were supposed to take to visit Alex's ill father, but according to a text sent by Maggie to a friend, Alex was acting fishy. Maggie went over to a dog kennel to meet their son, Paul, but at 10:06, Alex called the police to report the murder of Maggie and Paul with their bodies at the dog kennel, and him claiming he was over with his mother at the time of the crime. However, technology can be pretty incriminating, but also truth-telling, as a video recorded by Paul before his death showed Alex with his wife and son right before their gruesome murder by the new suspect, Alex himself. However, the investigation was pretty complicated, with a lack of evidence and the crime scene being ruined by rain, but the police still saw Alex as guilty enough to arrest him and charge him with 2 counts of murder, one with a shotgun and one with a rifle. In court, an audio of the investigation with Alex became hot, as it might have revealed Alex confessing to the crime, saying, "I did him so bad." But it's unclear whether he was saying I or they. The witness thought I, while the defense heard they.
It was just so bad. I did it so bad. Morning, Your Honor. I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Pawpaw.
With a bit of rushed police work, Alex was soon on trial for the murder of his wife and child. The judge couldn't be more baffled by the cruelty of one man. Alex still claimed that he was innocent, but his demeanor and calm tone in court implied nonchalance and genuine remorselessness. Even if he somehow didn't commit this murder, though, he was still busted for money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Talk about a real-life Lex Luthor. After the judge's extremely personal and touching words, Murdaugh still received 2 consecutive life sentences, but without the possibility of parole.
2 counts of murder involving your wife and your son. 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime.